time that is going to be uncertainty overhanging this.
I lifted a quote from the
what?
I lifted a quote from the op-ed pages of the Weekend Wall Street Journal to intro Senator Kaufman. But I'm going to intro you, and then I'm going to play it a little bit later. But
sure.
Senator Ted Kaufman is here, Delaware.
Yep.
Replaced Vice President Biden.
Exactly.
You were his chief of staff for how many years?
22.
All right, we got that out of the way. We like having you because you aren't trying to get reelected.
Right.
So you might actually be in Congress and do things based on what you think is right rather than doing something to get reelected.
I'd argue most congressmen do that, but I know that'd be a tough argument.
Which is why we have you in. We allow you for 2 hours because we don't want. No, we'd take anyone, but we do. I told you. Anyway, here is the quote that I want you to respond to right out of the box. And I don't know, I just thought, given all the conversations we had with Steve last week and with others about what business people are feeling, let's check it out, and I'll show you because I have it out in the form of a full screen, so let's bring it up so I can read it. I'm going to wait until you bring it up, Greco. I don't... Huh?
It's in preview right now.
Is it? Okay.
There it is.
All right. The Obama administration, in its Keynesian confusion, which I liked, is simultaneously saying that the economy, on the one hand, is so weak it needs more spending stimulus, but on the other hand, strong enough to absorb a huge tax increase, which they're talking about what we do at the end of the year. Now, there's more. The message of 2.4%, this was written after the GDP number, second quarter growth, is closer to the opposite. The epic government stimulus has failed to produce the robust expansion that was promised, and the prospect of higher taxes and more regulation is inhibiting the animal spirits in the private sector in corporations needed for growth to accelerate. And we may not have to wait, or may have to wait for November for Washington to get that message. Do you think there's any truth to any of that?
Not much.
Yeah.
But then again, I think when I read the Wall Street Journal, I say, who says the Wall Street Journal doesn't have comics? I find the editorial page usually a lot of fun for me.
Really?
But anyway, no, I think, look what happened to the economy. Go back and look at all the major criterion after we passed the stimulus bill. I mean, people can talk about it. I think people can complain there aren't enough jobs. That's because they lag. But you look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average, look at the gross domestic product, look at the change from losing jobs to gaining jobs. Seriously, if you draw the chart, it goes just like that in March of 2009. Every one of those things. So the stimulus worked. The question is, if we didn't have a stimulus, and we know what happened when you don't have a stimulus, that's what happened in Japan when we had the lost decade. I mean, if you don't have something that goes in, we had a $2 trillion hole in the economy. We went in with $880 billion. I think the arguments now, looking back on it, we should have done more. But as Peter Orszag said, and which I can attest to, we couldn't have gotten one more dollar out of the Republicans in the Senate. So, no, I think that's a misreading of what happened. I think you can look at it now and say maybe we should have more stimulus, but I tell you what, you're not going to get any more stimulus.
It must have been so bad then because the stimulus was going to keep us under 8. Without the stimulus, we were under 9.5. Well, you remember that's what
the problem was not that the stimulus didn't work. The problem is we misjudged how bad the economy is going, how deep it's going to go. And like you say, I'm not running for anything. But if you look at how deep the recession was, we just never figured it'd be that low. But look at the result. Look at what. Argue with me about this.
Right.
Did not the economy start turning around in March 2009? Was that just a pure chance, or was that because we passed a stimulus bill? And you talk about expectations. We all talk about expectations affecting the market. We passed a stimulus bill. It wasn't just the fact that we passed a stimulus bill. It's the fact people said, hey, something's coming. I know when I had those press conferences in Delaware to announce the new money for the stimulus, when I called the reporters and said, hey, look, some good news. So the stimulus basically worked. And it's got us up to now. Now, where are we, and where do we go from here?
What about the basic question, though, from that journal article? Is the economy weak enough that we need more stimulus, or is it strong enough that you can raise taxes? And
well, the point is, look, here, no one is talking about, first off, stimulus, tax cuts. You got to figure tax cuts are stimulus. Under anybody's definition, Keynes or anything else is stimulus. The big problem you got is, can you afford the deficit? Here's the trade-off. I think we need enough tax cuts in order to do something about bringing things back. I think it's a bad time to cut it on middle-class taxpayers because middle-class taxpayers basically go out and spend and everything. I was at a fundraiser when we passed the last rebate with a bunch of people who the tickets were $1,000 each. And when I'm around the table, I asked anybody, is anybody going to spend the tax cut? Not a single person sitting at my table is going to spend a tax cut. If you have the money, so the main thing, you're not going to get much bang out of the tax cut for people above $250,000. And yet you've got this incredible deficit reduction of almost $600 billion over the next 10 years. I have a problem how my colleagues can come to the floor and talk about the fact that we need a deficit, 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 deficit. I have to preside because I'm a freshman, so I sit there for hours. It is very painful. You sit there and you listen to these guys come to the floor and say, we got to do deficit, deficit. Then it comes to tax cuts, and they're all for, hey, let's put the estate tax, let's make it zero, let's go back $600 billion in 10 years. Let's increase, let's not cut the tax for
You've seen who says at least for a little while,
right,
let them be extended for everyone. I mean, a lot of your colleagues are saying...
No, not in my way. That's totally not true. Not a lot of my colleagues. There's one Democrat in the Senate who said something. Ken Conrad and
Evan Bayh, too.
Oh, okay. Well, Ken Conrad and Evan Bayh represent a part that believes that they believe it. But let me tell you something. Let me tell you something.
Mike Bloomberg over the weekend.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But the point is, how are they going to pay for it? You know, one of the things that drives me crazy, and really and truly about being there, is we're talking about the $32 billion we need in order to spend unemployment compensation. And my colleagues come to the floor, Republicans and moderate Democrats, and say, how are we going to pay for it? How are we going to pay for it? We passed the Bush tax cuts. We didn't ask who paid for it. We didn't pay for it. We had a war in Afghanistan. We passed that. We didn't say how we're going to pay for it. We had a war in Iraq. We passed that. We didn't say how to pay for it. Medicare prescription drugs, Part D. We passed that. Nobody had to pay for it. These are things that turned basically what should have been a $5 billion cut in the surplus over 10 years to the fact that we lost $5 billion or $10 billion turnaround.
Chasing bad policy with bad policy is not
Well, but the point is you got to take a hard look at the deficit and what we have to do about the deficit. I think the deficit is really a major, major problem. We have to deal with deficits. But you got to look at how we got there, and we're going to do the same thing we did before. And one thing that's true, I know Heritage Foundation came out and said that we got more revenue on the tax cuts. Let me tell you something. Every time we passed a Bush-Reagan tax cut, the deficits have soared. Every single time. So what we got to do is we got to get back to the basics. And I think taxes, I'm not for increasing taxes, but we got to do something about the deficits. And part of that's revenue, and part of it is cutting. And the main cut has to be in entitlements. That's where the money is. It's not in the normal programs.
No, yeah, entitlements or defense or something like that. But one thing that has people worried is the ability for corporations to feel comfortable about hiring people.
Exactly, and I think that's a serious problem. And I think right now corporations have, like, what is it, $2 trillion worth of cash or something?
Are they the bad guy? I read Bob Herbert over the weekend. What Bob Herbert says there. Krugman today.
Yeah, no, I look. It's a hard time to invest. I mean, as an investor, I mean, I'm not looking around for stocks. I mean, of course, I don't have any time to look around at anything, but it's a hard time to go out and put money. I feel the same way about banks. It's hard for them to put money into companies right now that had 2 years of the last 2 years of what they've had. So it's hard for corporations. It's hard.
But you don't think that some of the policies and the rhetoric from the Obama administration has made it tougher for corporations to hire people?
Even
though the CEO said, everyone that comes on says that.
Right. Yeah, I know that. It's a popular thing to say, and they're getting ready to see it. Look.
But they're the ones controlling it. If they're saying it and they're not hiring,
well, but I don't believe
that.
No, I'm not saying they're lying. I'm just saying it may be a piece of their ideology, but I think most CEOs are not ideological. They're really tough-minded about what they're doing, but they really want to take a piece out of Obama because Obama's passed some things that turned around Bush. I mean, Bush couldn't have been friendly to corporations, couldn't have been friendly to the street, couldn't be friendly.
They're the ones that hire everyone. You don't necessarily have to be antagonistic to corporations, do you?
No, I don't. But I don't think Obama's been antagonistic to corporations. I mean, I think, look, we went through a period.
Even the rhetoric, the bully pulpit is an important thing.
Bully part, but I think
I can name 5 industries that he is. Ream might be the wrong word.
Yeah, but I think. By the way, I think
5 industries.
Well, I can give you 5 industries.
Castigated and chastised.
Exactly right. I will give you 5 industries. Probably if I sit there and think about it. Well, I'm just saying. Look, we went through a situation, and this is one of those things that's kind of hard for me to focus sometimes. We almost destroyed the financial system of the United States, of the world.
But you had Dodd and Frank taking a victory lap during FinReg as if they had nothing to do with the whole problem, Senator.
Well, but my point is...
Who's going to chastise them and fine them?
Oh, I think people in the Congress that did what they did, they're running for re-election. They're going to have to face up to the voters, the ones that are. And I'm just saying that most of the stuff that we did, we had to do. I mean, just look at what happened. Look at the abuse. Look at what went on.
It's how you define or how you assign the blame for what happened. And at this point, one assigns it to the banksters, the other is assigning it to Fannie and Freddie.
I think
ideologically.
No, by the way, Fannie and Freddie. Let me tell you something. I'm not a Democrat that doesn't think we should have done something about Fannie and Freddie. But let me tell you, this bill was 2,300 pages already. How many pages more do we need to do Fannie and Freddie? We've got to do something.
Maybe start with Fannie and Freddie, and then.
Well, I think we had to start with doing the stuff that wouldn't happen again. And I think we got Fannie and Freddie under control. They're now under the province of the government. But we had a lot of things going on, as you know, with derivatives, what happened, credit default swaps, and the rest of that stuff. I mean, we had to kind of get the derivatives thing on the market. We had to get the regulators back regulating. I mean, look at
It's going well for you today with Senator Kaufman here, isn't it?
I'm
We've got him for-
interested.
we've got him
I
for
actually
2
disagree with
We
it.
have him for 2 hours.
I was